2, 3, let go.
Live and direct from Planet Cruz, New York. Soccer Sensei, Rodrigo Salazar, in Sartunda, our friend Carlito Valderrama representing, and we're about to be joined by Phil Schoen as I connect to Skype with Phil. What's up, man? What's up, fellas? You watch any matches this weekend?
Yeah, I've been following the Serie A, as we all know.
Yeah, you're doing well. Yes.
My team collapsed once again. Two losses in the last three games. And they lost the lead after many weeks.
Oh, really?
And but one person was extremely happy.
Me?
To wake up you. And another person called Diego Armando Maradona.
Yes.
He's extremely happy that Napoli is in first place, are the winter champions. And it hasn't been this way since 1990.
Napoli first place.
When they last won Serie A.
That's a big thing for Napoli. I mean, Walter tried to do it really well. Connected to Phil Schoen. I mean, Serie A is going well. I mean, you would think that Juventus would have been running away with it. Hey, Phil.
Howdy.
What's up, man?
You don't even want to know.
Okay. Again.
Getting a whole bunch of personal stuff done with home repairs. So good fun stuff.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's bad. I gotta paint some stuff here too. It's nuts. You never. How many times you go to Home Depot? Like back and forth. It sucks. So Phil, man, how are you, man? I mean, again, thanks for joining us. You are, the Don of soccer broadcasting. You are, again, we need to bow to the Tower of Phil. You are the man. How's it going, man? How's everything going?
I just play them on TV. No, I'm doing fine. It's been an interesting start to the new year, to say the least, and really looking forward to what looks to be a great stretch run. And now, even with the Copa America Centenario out there, it's almost like another mini World Cup on the horizon. So 2016 looks like it'll be a great year.
Say hi to your friend Carlitos Valderrama. He's a big fan of yours as well. He likes you a lot. He watches you on BeInSports. Obviously, Phil is the voice of you do La Liga. You do what other leagues you do on BeInSports?
A lot of Liga and Serie A. Some Liga. Had a chance to do a couple of PSG games this past week.
Nice.
And they're just looking phenomenal. Although the question is not really tested. Can they turn that around in Europe?
Yeah.
But we also cover the championship. We cover South American, North American, African World Cup qualifying.
Copa America qualifying. I mean, you guys.
The Copa America. Who knows? Maybe even the Centenario. We'll leave that up to the lawyers, but they're keeping us busy.
Yeah, you guys do a great job. Again, I mean, from soccer fanatics in New York, in the United States, I mean, we thank you for you guys really respect the sport, doing a great job. But let's kick off this 2015 year review. We talk about Serie A right now. Napoli is first place. A little surprising because everybody thought that Juventus was gonna like walk through the park with it. But Napoli and Higuain is having a really good year, right?
Higuain is doing fantastic. Although I have a feeling I know Argentina fans and probably even Napoli fans with that missed penalty last year are kind of waiting for him to get them to the precipice and see if he can finally get them across that threshold. You have to consider, even if Napoli is first, who's second? We're at the midway point of the Serie A season. Juventus starting out with an historically abominable start, and they're second by 2 points. I think if this was still like a 6, 7, 8 point gap, I feel a lot more comfortable if I'm a Napoli, a Fiorentina, and Inter. But this looks, again, just like Juve's to lose. They're coming together at the right time, especially if they can strengthen a little bit in this transfer window, but they don't need to strengthen much. Buffon, about to turn 38, is still playing lights out. And while Dybala might not be scoring quite as much as Carlos Tevez was last season, he has proven to be very valuable with an unlimited ceiling, it appears. So it's a Napoli squad that is absolutely brilliant to watch. Fiorentina similarly, although I think Paulo Sousa saw some of the limitations in this past round. He said that he's going to try and shore things up, and they have at least money for one big purchase in this transfer window. They're going to need it, but then again, I just sense that this is Juve's to lose, regardless from a Serie A perspective, from a neutral fan's perspective, because of Juve's poor start. It's opened the door to what should be a fantastic stretch run, where there could be 3 or 4 or maybe even more teams that have a legitimate chance to win this.
Yeah, no, it's definitely exciting just because, like you said, Juve is so packed. I mean, they have like Pogba, who's like, where do you play Pogba? You can play him anywhere. It's crazy. Dybala's playing okay. Their defense is pretty good as well. I mean, it really to me it's really now for Juve. It's really about the Champions League and what they can do there. But who else can they buy? I mean, you got Cuadrado, who was another mistake by Mourinho, by letting him go back to Serie A. He's doing wonderfully. He's a winger that can score. I mean, that's invaluable. He's kind of doing what Iturbe hasn't done in Serie A. Now Iturbe is going to Bournemouth or some like squad. It's crazy what a home place does for a member of a team, But I was never really comfortable in London, and you could tell. But again, Mourinho, for some reason, was not rating him. But there's a whole bunch of players that he didn't rate that are no longer there, and that's a whole other discussion. But what about Inter? My boy Ellis' squad. What do you think about them? How are they doing?
They are defensively phenomenal. What is it? 9 of the 12 wins, 1-0. I think 12 shutouts this season in total. The problem is they really need someone to step up on the offensive side, be it Icardi or whoever. Some of the pieces that they picked up, even though I thought that they were perfect for Inter, haven't quite fit in. I don't think we've seen the best of Kondogbia. I think that Gary Medel has, again, been phenomenal when asked. But this is an Inter squad, how would you put it? In some ways it's similar, I guess, to La Liga from an Atletico Madrid perspective. This is an Inter squad that is right there in the race, in Atletico's perspective, actually in front. And I don't think they're anywhere near playing their best. So if they can find a way to click into the second half of the season, I think even more than Napoli, who are flying high, I think Inter, with that extra room to grow, might be the team that would give Juventus the biggest challenge. And the fact that we're getting set to head into another Derby d'Italia, that could be the chance to really lay their claim. If they can find a way to go and get those 3 points head-to-head, it would go a long way towards giving them the confidence and perhaps putting a bit of doubt in Juve's mind heading down the stretch. But again, defensively, outstanding. Maybe, just maybe, you could say Mancini has kind of kept the brakes on offensively, but I think if you've watched, it's just, it looks like they're missing something. I know there's talk about re-signing Palacios, but in my mind, that's the old generation. I don't think you're going to see anything more out of him than we've already seen.
Yeah.
I think at best you can kind of hope for the same. But they need something to come in and at least give them a plan B.
Okay.
And by the way, just going to pop around behind because I think my plug came out. But
go ahead, do your thing. No problem. Go ahead. And definitely everybody, you guys are seeing us on Periscope. Thanks for all the hearts. I don't know who it is, but if you guys have any questions, definitely hit us up for myself, Ellis, or Phil Schoen. Ellis, anything for Phil?
It's been a great surprise, the rise of Fiorentina. And also there was so much criticism being handed to Sarri when he first took over Napoli. He's a guy that did a great job with Empoli, as we remember. And picking up the team after the sacking of Benitez, a man who's been sacked 2 times in the last 6 months. I thought, they lost the first home match, I think, against Sassuolo, and even Diego Armando Maradona, which I was talking to Rodrigo earlier, he was highly critical of him. But now he's saying today in the Italian media that he might fly in with a helicopter on the field if Napoli becomes champions this May.
He's so high he could just come by himself, just like.
What do you think that Sarri has done with this Napoli side? And why is Benitez such a controversial figure?
Those are two huge questions. I think the ability of Sarri is shown not just in Napoli, but you take a look at Empoli, a team that many thought was lifted by his personality, by his will, as well as his technique and tactics. But the fact that even with his departure, Empoli is not down in the relegation zone, but right on the outskirts of the European spots, shows that there was a good foundation that was built by Sarri. He's always going to have those doubts, even if Arrigo Sacchi did, because he never really played at any particular level. If I remember, Sarri was a banker. He kind of moved on from football and then finally realized that if he was going to do it, it was going to have to be now. Stepped up, very smart, very strong personality, but he doesn't seem to rub people the wrong way. Maybe it's not disciplinary and father, maybe more like an uncle who's kind of pushing, but he does have that ability to motivate. It also goes to show, you take a look at the situation with Napoli and Juventus. It took Juventus a little while because they were losing some huge pieces with Tevez, Vidal, and Pirlo. So changes to the playing roster, and it took them a while to find the roles. Morata also slipping off a little bit to the point where Mandzukic steps in. For Napoli, it was the same people, the same players pretty much, but it ended up being a new coach, and it ended up being, maybe the first 3 games, 4 games of an adjustment period. But after that, they bought into the system. They got an idea of what they were supposed to do. Solid in defense, quick in attack, and again with Higuain being razor sharp, that always helps. I think that Sarri perhaps also giving them a little bit of belief in themselves to go forward. And for Rafa Benitez, it always seemed he was much more concerned with what could go wrong than what should go right. And
That's so
we saw
true.
a little bit of that with Real Madrid as well.
Yeah.
I know it's only been the one game, but there seemed to be a certain freedom under Zinedine Zidane that was lacking with Rafa Benitez. Benitez is still a good coach, still a great coach. I mean, he won La Liga with Valencia. He did well even with the fans against him at Chelsea. Liverpool still loves him. It just wasn't the right situation at Real, and even in his hotel living days in Napoli, it just didn't feel like the perfect fit.
Yeah.
I think he was able to lift them a little bit. I love Mazzari, although again, I think the fact that he's still out of work kind of gives you an idea that maybe some of those giant teams have a few doubts. But Mazzari could only take them so far, and Benitez seemed to lift them even closer. And I think if this was at any other time than with a dominant Juventus, they would have had a Scudetti or 2. So as far as Sarri goes, I just wonder if they have enough. For example, if Higuain starts to get a bit off, is there someone on that team that could really step up and cover? It's still going to be a fun race. I still don't think we've seen Napoli quite hit their peak, but they're close. I think that they'll be in the running for that Champions League spot, even if I'm not quite sure that they'll be in the race for the Scudetto. As far as Inter goes, again, I think in some ways Mancini needs to take a few risks, because if you play so cautious, kind of like what Rudy Garcia did with Roma the past few seasons, you end up with a dozen draws or more, and shedding 2 points at a time that could come in handy at the end of the season.
Okay, let's move on to the Premier League. I mean, our squad, Arsenal, is doing really well, top of the league. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I mean, after Wenger criticism every year, he didn't buy the right guy, he didn't spend $100 million on the squad. Hey, I'm that board as well. It's doing really well. I mean, and one of the reasons is Joel Campbell, who spent some time in the Liga. How have you seen his progression? I mean, there's been a couple of injuries that we've had that have allowed Joel Campbell to really show his steel.
I've always liked Campbell from the time I first saw him with Costa Rica. I thought it was a little bit of an early move to head over to Arsenal, but obviously they knew what they were doing, sending him out bit by bit to certain teams. Betis and into Greece was Olympiacos. Each time seeming to get a little tougher, a little bit more conviction in his play, a little bit more determination, and it has paid off. Especially on a team that tends to rely so much on Olivier Giroud for goal scoring. It's nice to have another striker, even if he's playing a bit out of position, what they call it, like a target wing at times. It gives him another versatile attack, where with, say, an Oxlade-Chamberlain who's been a bit off, so it helps that Campbell stepped up, or even a Theo Walcott, so much as with speed and quickness, which Campbell has also, but he also has a little bit of trickery, and I think a better physique, and also maybe a better nose for goal than the other two. So it's a good problem to have. Although the real key for Arsenal, there's no doubt, especially with the fact that that we've seen a few injuries again, Coquelin in particular. So I hope that's something that they shore up in the transfer window. But Mesut Ozil finally given the freedom and finally stepping up to the responsibility. We're looking at a potential MVP performance if they end up winning. I'm still not 100% back on the Wenger bandwagon, because I think that credit on the two FA Cups, but again, considering the competition, I want to see what he does in this transfer window. I want to see how they play down the stretch. Again, I don't think Peter Cech was a necessary purchase for the first half of the season, because I like Ospina, I like Szczesny. I think that perhaps they were mishandled at times. They were very good, if not great, goalkeepers. But Cech has that little something extra, and I think we're starting to see it in the giant games. So maybe it's only the difference of 3 or 6 points over a season, but it's also where those 3 or 6 points come from, be it in the Champions League or in the Premier League. I still wish they would have shored up one more center back. I like Gabriel, but I would like one more veteran that they could rely on, maybe with a little more speed than Mertesacker, and maybe with a little more patience than Koscielny, but just something to give them a little depth. And again, they need another defensive midfielder. I think that they've been able to patch the holes pretty well, but this is a team that's going to need a healthy Coquelin, and he can only do so much.
And Casorla's been playing really well, and he's playing a little bit further back, and he's done amazing. Kind of a hybrid between a defensive midfielder and a creative guy, and he hasn't shrunk from the limelight there. He actually playing really well because he is a fighter, and I like that. I like that the squad is getting together. You mentioned Oxlade-Chamberlain. Chelsea wants to replace Hazard with Oxlade-Chamberlain, which really shows you how bad Chelsea's, where their mind's at. I mean, obviously, Oxlade-Chamberlain, he's a gunner. You got to support him, but he's no Hazard. Never will be, I don't think. Not in my opinion.
Hazard isn't really Hazard this year. And I would agree with you to kind of throw him away is foolish. I know there was some talk about an Hazard for Bale swap, but that's not going to happen. He's Florentino Perez's baby.
No way.
And obviously coming off,
3 goals
in his last 7 games. I don't think Zinedine Zidane's going to want to let him go either.
No way.
Especially considering the fact that Cristiano Ronaldo's having a very hard time scoring against the better teams. It's nice to have a Benzema and a Bale. So I think that with a new coach in charge in hitting, there's the chance that down the stretch, Hazard will reclaim some of what he showed last year and not what we saw the first 4 or 5 months of this season. But Chelsea definitely in strange straits. And I think we have to, again, looking at Juventus, give credit to Allegri. There were a lot of changes. They started out miserably, did relatively well in the Champions League, but then they were able to right the ship. Something happened with Mourinho, and it's something that we've seen over the last few stops, obviously up until I'd say through his first stop in Chelsea and at Inter, and maybe the beginning of Real Madrid. There was always the talk that as brusque a character as he was, that everyone in the club that dealt with him personally loved him. Be it the cleaning lady to whoever the multi-billion-dollar striker was, that they all felt as though Mourinho was on their side, they were on his side. But I don't know if it's a situation of like Macbeth, where he's starting to hear the ghosts and starting to go a little stir crazy in his head. But each stay has been more tumultuous. Each stay has ended a little bit more with disaster than success, and you're kind of wondering what's going to be there in the future for Mourinho. They needed a calming influence. Hitting comes in, gives it to him similarly, I guess, in a way that Ancelotti did at Real Madrid, but it's short term. I mean, just look at Hitting's birth certificate. You know, it's not going to last too long. Yeah. So what they're going to do in the next step, forget Hazard, is going to be who's going to have to step in and try and take Chelsea into the future.
We have to ask you about
worked it out for him.
We have to ask you about Guardiola. I mean, I think that's really what everybody wants to know. Where is he going? It's like the LeBron James. Okay, once that piece falls in to NBA, where's LeBron James going? Then all these moves happen. Me personally, I think he wants to go to Man United. He's waiting on them to get rid of Van Gaal. I know Van Gaal is Woodward's guy, and they're trying to hold on to him. But I just think that he wants to go to Man United. Everybody's saying Man City because the whole Barcelona, links, people there. But I think he's holding on to want to coach at Man United. That's my personal opinion. He may go to Man City. What do you think?
I would agree with you, but I know that there's a huge respect, both from Mourinho and Guardiola, towards the legacy of Alex Ferguson. And I think both of them would be honored to coach at Old Trafford. However, the fact that Begiristain is there, the fact that Man City is not in such turmoil kind of gives you an idea that maybe the path is a little smoother in that direction. It would be interesting to see Mourinho take over at United. As again I mentioned, in some ways he was almost a hand-picked successor to Ferguson. And now perhaps it would actually be an easier transition with a couple of coaches in between. The only concern I would have if I'm United or City from a Mourinho perspective, again, as I said, is looking at his recent track record, from his eye-poking against Villanova to his battles with Florentino, and now the disaster on his return at Chelsea. However, I think that Mourinho gives United another good target, that maybe they don't throw everything and the kitchen sink to try and get Guardiola. And with the connections and the politicking that have been going on over the past year or so to try and get Guardiola to City, I think that that's probably going to be successful. Regardless, I don't think, again, still, that the Premier League is the best league. I think it's the best marketed league. I think it's the best supported league. I think in many ways it can be very, very exciting. But it's a bit short-sighted to say other leagues aren't. One thing I would say that could help them to reclaim that top spot is the addition of coaches like a Klopp, like a Guardiola, to bring in something new. I mean, you just take a look at the revelations when the likes of a David Silva and a Cesc Fabregas first came over, and Özil as well, that had provided a bit of a spark to the hustle and bustle. And now if you get more and more coaches, I think that could help the Premier League not just play a more attractive style for the home fans, but also perhaps reclaim some dominance in Europe, which has eluded them of late.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Final league, Ellis, La Liga. Questions?
We're talking about Zidane, the emergence of Zidane at Real Madrid. Also, there's been mentions of, well, Luis Enrique is doing a phenomenal job, continues to do a phenomenal job with his MSN trio. But what about Atletico Madrid? Here's a team that is top of the league. They've joined this two-horse race in the recent seasons, and they keep losing their best forwards year after year. This year they lost Mandzukic, which went to Juve. How is this guy capable? How is Simeone able to somehow plug in these different characters into a squad year after year and still be fighting against most likely, which it might be alongside Bayern Munich, are the two top teams not in Spain but in the whole world?
It's phenomenal. And I know Ray kind of pokes fun at me before when Simeone came across, where I said he really hadn't done anything yet to be lifted up to that top level. And admittedly, he had won at River. But in my mind, that's like, I guess, putting your shingle out. You still have to convince people to buy. And I think that first season where he was able to lift up what was a good team under Gregorio Manzano, but just didn't seem to have that heart, that fire, that spine, that purpose, and that is all Simeone. He takes good players, gives them a conviction, gives them an identity, gives them a desire to be a team, and that lifts them much, much higher than the individual elements. Now, getting back to Chelsea, I know there was some talk that Simeone might be on the horizon, and in my mind, that might be one of the only picks. I'm not sure if Abramovich would be looking perhaps more for someone with a bit more of a track record, but Simeone's darn close, and I think he would be in that mix if you're looking at the top 5 coaches in the world right now. I think what we have seen from Luis Enrique has been phenomenal, especially after the disaster at the midway point of his first season. The way that, thanks to Xavi in many ways, he was able to calm the waters and then show what he was able to do, maybe modifying his ideas and his management style a bit in the process. I would not have been surprised after they won everything to see him pack up and leave after that first season, but credit to him that he was able to see the big picture and look a little further into the future because he has lifted himself into that upper echelon. As far as Zidane goes, it's not even the honeymoon. I mean, this is still the wedding night. But it was a nice sign to see Real Madrid really step it up. I got a tweet over the weekend saying that Ray and I were a little over the top, almost fawning, I guess, at Real Madrid. But I think that has to go with more of how well they were playing, the style they were playing, the joy they were displaying compared to the last few days of Rafa Benitez. Plus also the fact, and I think we did go out of our way to mention the fact that Deportivo is a good team, and statistically, if you're looking at shots, corners, possession, everything else, it was a rather balanced match. But then you look at the scoreboard, and it was 5-0, and probably could have been 6 or 7 without much imagination. So I think Zidane has something to build on, and we're going to learn a lot. His only other coaching experience really was with Real Madrid Castilla side, which got relegated, in position to be promoted again this year. But it's a big cry from the second and third division in La Liga to arguably the most important team on the planet. And it looks like he's handling it well. Now, as far as Simeone goes, it's interesting because I think he was trying to change a little bit this year. And you're right with all of the string of forwards that have come in and out, going back to Torres 1 through Forlan and Aguero, etc., and now into this Griezmann, Martinez, not to mention Correa and Prieto. They're still learning their way. And I think this is the one real challenge. If Barcelona had stumbled when Messi was out for 2 months and maybe been 6 points down, I think Atletico would have a good claim towards this crown. I still think it's Barcelona's to win at the moment, but the fact that Atletico is in first and still hasn't come anywhere near their peak. I mean, Jackson Martinez is the type of goal scorer I think that could put 20 or 25 on the board in the second half of the season if everything goes his way. And to this point, he's pretty much been striker non grata. Everything's relied on Griezmann. So I think that there's a lot more to come from Atletico, and if Simeone is able to marshal that together, this is a team that could challenge, perhaps even more than Real Madrid, for the title. But the start of the season, with these players that were coming in, it seemed as though Simeone was trying to play a bit more attractive, not just possession, but possession with a purpose, and hold on, rather than be a fierce, determined, counter-attacking squad. But then about 2 months into the season, it seemed as though he had a bit of an epiphany where he said, we're going to get back to playing Atletico football, and that's when things started to click. And again, while the engine is clicking, I don't think they've quite put it into top gear yet. I think there's much more to come if you're an Atletico fan in the second half of the season. But again, all of that goes to Simeone. And if he does end up leaving for Chelsea or going somewhere else, I have a real concern that this might be an Atletico that just collapses. So much is just built on his foundation. And I'm not really sure there are any other coaches out there that are quite capable of keeping it up.
Definitely. Phil, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, it's like a lesson every time we speak to you. Love having you on. Definitely everybody check him out on BeInSports. Him and Ray Hudson do a phenomenal job. Again, Phil, thanks so much for joining us on Soccer Senseis.
My pleasure. And again, just my opinion.
Yes, no, definitely.
Opinion. Everyone's entitled, but it was always a pleasure.
Thanks, Phil.